thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here in Australia with all of you to discuss all the exciting things going on in the archive sector across the globe. I'm glad to be here to share the Norwegian perspective with you. But this is not actually my first time in Adelaide. In 1986, I watched the movie Crocodile Dundee with a couple of friends at the local cinema. We loved the movie and we decided then and there that we just had to go to Australia. We finished college the following spring and we worked all we could to save enough money. And finally, 2nd of January 1988, the wait was over. Full of excitement, we boarded the plane, ready for adventure. And here I am. As a young backpacker, in a hostel right here in Adelaide. The hostel was cheap and horrible, but we loved it. Remember that the inspiration for the whole trip was Crocodile Dundee, so of course we had to have the hat. While in Adelaide, I bought a towel you can see hanging on the bed in the picture, which I ended up using both on the beach and as a duvet. I'm not a person who normally keeps things for a long time, but it must have been something special with this towel, cause over 30 years later, I still have it. The hat, on the other hand, is long gone, but that might be for the best. I really loved Australia, and it's so nice to be back in a more comfortable hotel this time. But I'm not here to talk about my backpacking adventure. I'm here to talk about how Norway has redesigned our national archives over the last couple of years, turning the focus from analog to digital data management. I joined the National Archives as director in 2014. I was brought in to transform and redesign the institution, bringing it into our digital age. I have been through similar processes in other large organizations before and had experience in leading companies with big IT departments. When I started in this position, I was the first director of the National Archives with a background from outside the archive sector. But before I start talking about the changes we have been through, let me first give a little background about the Norwegian society. I think it's important to keep this in mind when you hear me talk about the changes we have been through to understand why we did things the way we did. Ever since the 1960s, the Norwegian government has carried out considerable efforts to optimize the benefits of new technologies and integrate it in public sector reforms. Public sector institutions, citizens, and businesses have greatly benefited from well-established and long-time government efforts, commitment, and investment in the areas. As a result, the Norwegian public service is highly citizen-centered. The growing sophistication and highly digitized public sector, combined with digitally skilled citizens and businesses, has made Norway one of the most digitized countries in the world. Most Norwegians have high technological skills and use digital technologies in most areas of life. Reports show that 90% of the population use digital solutions in their communication with the government. So building on what's already been done and looking at what lies ahead, the main focus of the government now is to ensure that the way the public sector uses technology truly benefits the citizens in a wider context. And to coordinate this, the first Norwegian Minister of Digitalization was appointed last year. In June, he released a new strategy for digitizing the public sector. Because when all information is collected digitally, it is crucial that different systems are compatible and can speak with each other, so we can share data and offer even better services moving forward. The National Archives play a crucial role in this development. But when we go from analog to digital and start talking about data instead of documents and records, it is important to appreciate that the value of the information is the same, regardless of format. That the data is captured, secured, stored safely, and made accessible is crucial for democratic values in Norway. Values like openness, transparency, and impartiality. In Norway, the National Archives is a subordinate agency under the Ministry of Culture and comprehend the National Archives, 8 regional state archives, the Sami Archives, and the Norwegian Health Archives. The National Archives plays different roles in different countries. In Norway, we have 3 main roles: to preserve archives from the central and local government entities, as well as selected private archives, and make this material available to the public. Supervise records administration within central government, the county municipalities, and they are over 400, as well as providing standards, supervision, and guidance. Our role is also to drive the archive sector forward. This includes identification of common needs, develop national infrastructure, and nurture innovation. Earlier, our job was easy. We secured the archives of the nation by preserving paper records. It was straightforward, safe, and easy. Companies stored their files in their own archives, and after some years they were transported to the National Archives for long-term storage in a safe repository with proper temperature. Today, however, the story is not as simple. Communication between colleagues, friends, and clients take place on a wide range of digital platforms, such as texts, emails, Workplace, and Slack. As a result, today's archives are complex computer systems with enormous amounts of new data produced every second of every hour of every day. As I mentioned, Norway is one of the most digitized countries in the world, and the benefits of an efficient and citizen-focused public sector where people can get the information they need, when and where they need it, can hardly be underestimated. But, as the saying goes, every cloud has a silver lining. Our reports clearly show that we struggle to preserve the data we produce. Estimates show that only 6% of the digital archives are preserved securely. I'm sure many of you can relate to the fact that the radical change in communication habits and the introduction of new technology has made the task of securing the data of the nation much more complex. It is forcing us to rethink everything we do. For over 200 years, we have been experts in preserving records on paper, but we were facing big challenges in handling huge amounts of data. And the fact is that in a few years, the National Archives will become Norway's largest data management center, a role we were not ready to fulfill. To give an example, when I joined the company 5 years ago, we had 350 employees. Out of these 350, were only 3 IT developers. 3. We had 9 local institutions with no centralized management. For years, everybody had been talking about the challenge we were facing, but talking doesn't make changes. It was time to act. Skål. obvious from the start that it would not be enough to simply improve our current systems and work faster. No matter how fast we could work and how much better we could make our existing systems, it would never make us able to handle the huge amount of data heading our way. We had to transform the whole organization. We introduced fundamental changes at all levels, which was both extremely brutal and extremely necessary at the same time. The first thing we did was to change the structure of the organization. The business had been based on location, with local managers in charge. Because of this, similar tasks were handled differently in the different locations, and we had no common practice. While we still have the different locations, we are now organized by function, not location. This has been absolutely crucial to create common goals and prioritize, as well as a common understanding of the direction we are heading. We created an innovation department. As I mentioned, no matter how much we improved the current way of working, it would never be sufficient. We had to prioritize innovation in order to take on the challenges. This department, innovation, has become our top priority, and it has led us to work in other innovative ways, like my colleague Espen had a session about yesterday. And this leads me to the third big change, recruitment and new skill sets. We needed new competence to embrace new technological solutions and bring new perspectives. We were in desperate need of employees with experience from other industries. I was the first person in the leadership team hired from outside the archive sector. I wanted to bring diversity, and this is a priority in our recruitment. Now the leadership team consists of people with a wide range of backgrounds and competence. But of course, new skill sets is needed throughout the organization at all levels. And we have also hired several IT developers, business architects, and service designers. But prioritizing all of this also means that we need to put less focus on other aspects of the organization. This is of course never easy, and there will always be conflicts of interests. So I'm not going to lie and say it's been an easy ride. I joined an over 200-year-old organization with an extremely knowledgeable workforce who love their jobs on paper and have strong passion for the archives. I knew from the moment I accepted the job that I would meet criticism both inside the organization and in public. The media, as always, loves a good conflict. And our reorganization was no exception. Local and national media outlets published numerous articles with harsh critique, written by both previous directors of the National Archives, current employees, and others. Here is a couple of examples. Stop the director. The director glorifies the reality. Even politicians in parliament joined the debate. Suddenly, everyone cared about archives. But for me, the key through the whole process has been to keep in mind why we started this transformative process in the first place. It's about our democratic rights, it's about our cultural heritage, and it is about trust. And most of all, it's about the Norwegian people. And the fact is, we were running out of time. If we hadn't started to deal with the digital challenges then, it would have been too late. We were facing a black hole in the nation's memory. The society changed so fast today. It is fundamental that we are able to keep up. And to do this, We have to accept that we need to be in a constant state of transformation and adjustment. To solve our tasks more efficiently, we can no longer work in silos as we used to. We now work interdisciplinarity to build bridges between old and new skills. On top of the business architects, service designers, and IT developers I mentioned earlier, we also hire economists and project managers. The new structure is also pushing us to explore new technology to solve different tasks. For instance, we are now looking at how artificial intelligence can help us transcribe handwritten documents. As I mentioned earlier, in a few years we will be the largest data management center in Norway. Taking archives into the 21st century and the fact that we are now talking about data as opposed to documents and records makes it easier for us to communicate with stakeholders and politicians. As a result, we experience a wider understanding and appreciation of our role and challenges. In fact, earlier this month, the national budget for 2020 was announced. And for the first time ever, we were granted a substantial sum of additional funds from the government. This type of recognition and acknowledgement of the importance of what we do would never have been, we would never could do it. It would have been unthinkable just a few years back. So it's important that we focus on presenting not only solutions for today, but a vision for tomorrow. This is Trine, our minister. She's very happy with us now. And the future is what matters. After all, what is data really worth if it can't be accessed or shared? Our vision is to provide a global access to all of Norway's historical data for everyone, whether you are in Oslo, Paris, Shanghai, or even here in Adelaide. Recently, the first step towards achieving this vision was taken when Norway became the first country in the world to offer an online platform for all sectors, both private and public, wanting to share their historical data. We call it Digital Archive. This brings us closer to our goal for providing digital self-services online. It will give people one platform to access all historical data in Norway, no matter when and where it was created and who created it. Historical data may be data created only a few years ago. Because data can be put together, it can be used over and over. It can be infinitely refined. And when we find new ways to utilize data, it will gain additional value. But data can also be abused or disappear. And it is our job as archivists to ensure the data will be kept safe. We are therefore also looking at developing national infrastructure for long-time storing of data to every archival institution in Norway. Norway is not unique when it comes to the challenges we face. And I know a lot of you, and I know also that what I have talked about today will resonate with many of you. The fact I mentioned earlier, that Norway is one of the most digitized countries in the world, forced us to start a transformative process and rethink everything we did. Both the government and people have high expectations. Data should be available anywhere and at any time. And I cannot stress enough the urgency we feel to provide the right solutions to make this happen. And to find the best solutions, we need to work together, share experiences, ideas and visions. That is why I would like to extend my appreciation to the organizers for bringing us all together to discuss these issues. I'm confident that together we will be able to get past the digital challenges and embrace the digital possibilities. Thank you from a mountain with snow in Norway.
Without further ado, I am going to introduce Dr. Anne Hardy from the University of Newcastle in Australia. Dr. Anne Hardy is a historian who is the Living Histories coordinator at the University of Newcastle's Cultural Collections GLAM Lab. And her background and commitment is to historical and archival research, and she coordinates work integrated learning students on placement in the lab. She has a number of different interest areas, but I'm not going to take up her time. So Anne will speak about a survey users of the GLAM¹ Living Histories Digitisation Lab at the University of Newcastle, Australia.
So, thanks for coming to the session this afternoon. I thought before I talk about the survey results and some of the work integrated learning and feedback, I thought I'd just give you some background about the work integrated learning program at the GLAM¹ Digitisation Lab. So I'll refer to the work integrated learning as real through the talk. First up, I'd also like to acknowledge my colleague John DeBarca, who's the archivist at the University of Newcastle. It was his original idea to establish a digitisation lab, and he was mindful of the emerging technologies and skills that were needed. And part of this paper is also an upcoming chapter that's in press at the moment that's called Engaging Tertiary Students with University Archival Collections and Digitisation Processes. So in 2017, the GLAM¹ Lab was established for students in the university's law programs. This was a new venture for the library to promote and augment the established law courses in the BA. So what we might do is just play a short video, and it's one of our work integrated learning students.
My name is Angelique Carr. I'm doing a Bachelor of Arts and my major is English and Writing. My grandma was a librarian, so I spent a lot of time as a kid in libraries, so being in an archive is just like a second home to me. I really like reading. I really like the stories. I think that is what makes up a person's life, is the little stories. I sorted through some tapes of some oral histories and I edited them, made sure that they were listenable, and I put them up online so other people could hear them as well. Digitising audio, I think, is just a life skill in this day and age. YouTube is so big, SoundCloud is so big. It's just a really good way to connect with other people. I'm very interested in writing, so if I did want to become a writer, it would be very good for me to self-promote. If I worked for another archive, I could promote them as well.
So since the lab's establishment, more opportunities for students in other faculties have also been realised, with students from communication and business school participating in some of our placements. So in total, we've had 35 Will students have taken up placement since the beginning of 2017. The lab provides a unique opportunity for students to engage in a practical education and learn the technical know-how to be able to transform any physical format into a digital archive and access to an entire gamut of GLAM professions across the following areas. As you can see, our team consists of a conservator, archivist, library staff, IT technicians. So there's a whole range of skills around cultural materials. So So the two major projects that we've established and had students as well as volunteers work on in the lab are very specialised. They're quite different to the other part of the cultural collections team, where we're digitising 3D artefacts. So that belong to, it's called the Deep Time Project, and it's a digitisation project of Aboriginal stone tools that were found in Newcastle West in an archaeological dig. And the other project is around the NBN Television Archive, which is a regional archive that we have a team of people. The archive is quite large, extensive. It was established in 1962, so there's a lot of material to do. The lab operates all year round, during weekdays, except for the official university shutdown period. The users are supervised and have access, like I said, to the raft of staff in cultural collections. We have 3 main rooms. The main lab has 10 workstations, each have computers, flatbed scanners, VR and Oculus VR, where VR and 3D projects can be viewed on a large screen. There's also the Artefact Conservation Atelier, and that contains a 3D scanner, the reflective 3D scanning lightbox and turntable, the laptop computer and Artex Studio software that you would have seen in that video where scanning, it's very small handheld 3D scan that we're digitising the Aboriginal artefacts. And as I mentioned, there's the NBN Television Archive, and we've got all the equipment now, which is fortunate. We've got the knowledge of some of the former NBN television staff that have pulled all the equipment together, so you can basically digitise any at-risk film format. This is just a definition from our Working Graded Learning coordinator across the University of Newcastle to get a definition around working graded learning, and it's different to volunteering. It really needs to incorporate theoretical learning and application in a workplace. It has to be assessed, and there has to be clear learning outcomes. So the student has to be monitored, there needs to be reports. So yeah, it's very specific. So the importance with the WIL program is supervision. Setting up the program agreement was important that the students were accommodated in a safe work environment. This was to ensure that the students are properly cared for and that the WIL programs are regulated to provide skills and education and experience in a safe, inclusive workplace, and that they're not subject to exploitation. The WIL facility and training environments need to be fully compliant with the relevant legislation and regulatory standards in Australia, and that governs the university's academic courses. In Australia it's called TESQA, Tertiary Education Quality and Standard Agencies. So international guests, you might have something similar for your own countries. The WIL students are given an induction to the lab, they're introduced to colleagues, they're treated like our work colleagues. They come to meetings and interact with visitors that come to the lab. And the lab coordinator, myself, ensures the computers or the technical devices are working, and there's a lot of administrative needs. So why are WIL opportunities important? A census report of 2016 following young people's journey over a decade found that barriers to finding full-time work included, quite simply, not enough work experience, lack of career management skills and not enough jobs. A major issue for students entering the workforce after finishing university is the lack of practical skills. So at the GLAMX Lab, we've attempted to provide experience and career development for our working and graduate learning students specifically interested in gaining valuable practical professional skills in the GLAM sector and the ever-emerging and changing roles. So many universities at present, including the University of Newcastle, are revising their courses to align with employability, building resilience and introducing WIL across all faculties. So they're calling it WIL for all. The current draft university strategy has embedded all the way through it WIL looking at students, that students are coming out of university, their employability is very key. So will students are invited to share their work with our monthly group, the Hunter Living Histories. We also encourage them, the projects they've worked on, to write them up and to publish them on the website. So the 35 or 36 Will students we had in, 21 participated in the survey. So you can see the age, the majority of them are under 24. Then we've got, another large group, but then we've got the mature age students, a sort of largish group as well. Gender very evenly balanced here, 50-50. What schools, we asked them, what schools are we coming from, because as the lab evolves, what we can see is that there's opportunities in social work, and social work's come up quite a number of times in some of the sessions today, but to look at IT, the skills of working in a lab with people around digitalisation projects. There's so many other disciplines, so we'll probably in the future measure a few more and really think about that. So these were the actual main areas of study. The last 2 years we have had a lot more communication students because of the audio-visual television archive, and it's been a really nice dual process that we've had the younger guy students working with the older volunteers. They're learning a lot of manual skills of digitising, how to use a lot of the older equipment, and that's been really good because they're capturing knowledge, and then they're also able to video digitise it and capture before a lot of those volunteers, I don't know how long they're going to be around for, but to capture something in a real tangible, practical way. And this was just, we asked them some of their experiences, so a little bit more like qualitative. This one here, how do you describe your experience at the lab? Very educational, rewarding. It's given trust and freedom to put what I've learnt throughout my degree into practice, but also being given plenty of opportunities, so plenty of support and guidance, both in general and when I specifically ask for help. So we try to have a very supportive environment, or physically in the lab most of the time, if not there's other staff around. Also there was another comment, my experience at the GLAM was amazing. I don't know, a lot of these students, their general feedback was that it's a quite different experience coming to university, that there is so much that is around just theoretical learning, doing assessment, it never really sees the light of day. Where the experience in the lab, in just physically being in space with other people, interacting with a team, sharing what they're doing, it was overwhelmingly they were positive, so we were quite pleased with that. Did you feel the lab provided opportunities for you to connect here in a practical way? Again, they responded quite positively to that question. Were there opportunities for you to share your work with peers, local experts and communities? And again, the Hunter Living Histories group, our monthly group, we've been running for 12 years. It's a very safe environment for our students to come and to present, and to also get feedback from former staff at the university, former professionals, and it's a very constructive way. We also try to encourage a lot of community engagement and projects around digitisation, and that we can help support a lot of communities. I just think the explanation, the definitions this morning were quite apt for a lot of projects that we've worked on, because it's particularly with the VR, so you can sort of see the next step of digitising and what we do with the material that we've digitised. Did you have sufficient support and resources provided to do your job well? Again, something pretty positive about. But this one was really interesting, and like I mentioned before, that the value that students got from actually working with archival material, working with other people, impact that I think it had on them engaging with an archive, a photograph, cultural material. It's so much different, particularly for a lot of the students that might be interested in IT and how to build gaming platforms and VR, that to see them engaging something that they can sort of take to that next level and do something creatively in a technical environment, it just seems to have that little bit more meaning for them, so that was positive. Contribution to the community, again that engagement with the community, then what specific skills, new knowledge and contacts did you learn that may enhance your employability, and like looking at the first two questions, like I said, we've introduced the communication students, so I think they must have been the latest responses and they've communicated really well. Put a lot of detail in their responses, which is lovely, just able to implement theoretical understanding of social media management in a practical setting. Degree about social media. And the placement opportunity gave me educational experience that I would not have been able to get from my own degree. So it's sort of like an add-on for a lot of these students. And if anything, it's exposing them to the archive, the GLAM sectors, the jargon, the terminology. What is archiving? What's a cultural artefact? And yeah, so it's exposing them to a whole new area of the workforce. And again, they were very honest in what they said they liked and they didn't like. There were some positive things. I like being involved in meetings within the cultural collections, being invited to give my opinion. It made me feel like I was part of a team rather than just an intern. So in concluding, the key findings of the survey showed that the majority of the users found it to be quite positive, particularly with cultural material. Many continue to volunteer, some in the capacity after their placements, and you see that subtle change in their demeanour, how they interact with other people, so it's really confidence building. The location of the lab in the library seems to be ideal. It's conducive to having students from a whole array of different faculties come in and work collaboratively. And the real strength is the inclusion of students from particular fields. And I guess because a lot of the projects that we do in cultural collections and also in the lab are based on they come from the community, so it's very needs orientated. So it means that the design of how students are involved in projects is really community-led. It's very fluid, it's very flexible. You can also adapt what they want to learn to the projects that are happening. So if anything, it's still a pilot, but it's been a good test just to see whether it works. And our plan from here is to review it ourselves, and also, because it's just a lab on a very small scale, just try to map out where we need to expand. The library's changing, the university's changing, so to plan a little bit for the future in terms of how we can structure and how some of our processes and how we review the students ourselves a little bit better. And also I might mention to those of you that might be already involved in a lab of some type, there is the Libraries of Lab network in Australia through Diary, and there's also an international GLAM Labs network. So if anyone's interested in wanting to know more about that, they can see me or one of those coordinators. But thank you for listening, and enjoy it.
Thank you, Anne. I have lots of questions for you, but I will hold them until later. Please join us in preparation for the discussion in about 20-25 minutes' time. I am going to introduce Inga Bolstad, who is Assistant Director General Preservation and Digitisation at the National Archives of Australia. Somewhat like myself, he's worked in a number of Australian national cultural institutions, the National Film and Sound Archives of Australia, the National Museum of Australia, and he's also worked in private practice at the International Conservation Service. He's involved with a number of other groups, including the Australian Institute for the Conservation of Cultural Materials, otherwise known as the AICCM in Australia, as well. Has a background in conservation. Adelaide will be speaking about triumphs and challenges of digitising the National Archives of Australia's paper and photographic records.
Hi. Just a point of clarification, I haven't moved up the ladder to Assistant Director General yet, just to Assistant Director. but it's good to, look at. Thank you, Suzanne. I'd like to also start off by acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional country of the Ghana people of the Adelaide Plains, and I pay respect to their elders, past and present, and I also extend that respect to the Aboriginal language groups and other First Nations who are present here today. My aim today is to give you a brief history of the archive's holdings and a brief history of our digitising practice and list our main digitising challenges and outline our digitising strategies. So I hope that's what you've come here for, and if that's the case, let's get started. The National Archive is often described as the memory bank of the Australian federal government. And although the archive holds records which relate to the information of federal government prior to 1901, it wasn't until 1944 that the National Library of Australia appointed the first archive officer, and it took until 1961 before the archive became independent from the National Library, and it took a further 23 years before our own Archive Act came into effect. Given this short history, I feel that we've come a long way since our first archive officer was appointed 75 years ago. We now have 8 purpose-built repositories and offices located in every state and territory in Australia. And our newest purpose-built repository in Canberra was just opened 2 years ago. And as you can see, it's pretty small. We also now have a custody of something close to 350 kilometres of records, and these are held in our 8 repositories and across Australia. 2/3 of these holdings, however, are located just in Canberra, Sydney and Melbourne. And as you would expect, the great majority of these physical records are paper, but we also have photographs, oil, film, textiles, scientific specimens, audiovisual records, just to name a few. In 1983, the first year of the Archive Act, our holdings were only accessible in our reading rooms. We had 3,000 in-person reference inquiries in our reading rooms, and we issued 27,000 items to those clients. Photocopies were provided to our remote clients, and focus at that time was on agency and series registration and inventories. The era of item level entry had not yet arrived. However, by 2000 we had an item level database which had over 2.5 million items entries, and our in-person reference inquiries grew from 23,000 to 57,000. Now, I don't know if you know, but Australia was permanently connected to the World Wide Web in June 1989. And the archive quickly embraced the internet technology as a means of serving researchers. So in 1995, we launched our own website, which included information about our holdings. In 1997, we created a searchable photographic database, PhotoSearch, and we put it online via our website. And this was followed in 2000 with our item level database, Record Search. That same year, we had over 73,000 records accessed online. And at this time, our online entries didn't yet have digital images, but we started to think about doing it. So, in 2000, we undertook a pilot digitising project on our paper and photographic records held in Canberra. This led us in April 2001 to introduce our free Digitising on Demand service just for our Canberra photographic and paper records. This limited digitising on demand service caused a significant surge of remote inquiries, and 177,000 pages were digitised and loaded to record search that first year. 6 years later, in 2007, we rolled out the same digitising service across all of our facilities nationally, and for a fee, you could get records digitised, and once they were loaded onto our database, they were free for everyone to use. Today, our Digitising on Demand service contributes significantly towards the annual number of items digitised. Last financial year alone, we digitised 20,000 items, which generated over 650,000 images, and these were all requested and paid for by our clients at a cost recovery level. We also undertake annual proactive digitising projects. And our first significant proactive digitising project was the digitisation of all our 376,000 World War I dossiers, creating 12.3 million images, which were made available free online by our record search database. And this gift to the nation was launched in April 2007 by our serving Prime Minister at the time, the Honourable John Howard. What I find specifically fantastic about that project is that within 24 hours of that launch, more than 44,000 people individually went online and accessed those records, and those records continue to be frequently accessed online today. More recently, we introduced an agency digitisation service. We provide agency clients with a digital version of these records rather than lending them physical files. The service is available from all our holdings nationally, and records are digitised by our staff, and the digital copy is sent to the agency via secure file transfer. The digital images are then also loaded to record search for everyone to use. Last financial year, this service digitised 3,850 files and created 193,000 images. Now, given the conference venue and the fact that my two sons are sports obsessed, I think I'll get away with saying that the archive has played a great game and kicked many goals since we started playing the beautiful game that is digitising. I can report that we've digitised over 2 million paper and photographic items, totaling over 62 million images. And I would happily notch that result up as a triumph on the oldest stadium scoreboard in Australia, here at the Adelaide Oval, if they would only let me. But I also know that the digitising game is far from over, and unfortunately I have to report to you that we're now playing into headwinds. In fact, these are significant headwinds, and we're combined to form the perfect storm. These winds are not new, but digitising in these winds has and will continue to be challenging. Our challenges can be summed up as the scale challenge, digitising the enormous volume of records we hold, the demand challenge, meeting an ever-increasing client demand to access all our records online, preferably today and not tomorrow. The budget challenge, which really is about funds not matching the challenge of scale and demand. To explain these wins a little further, let's start with the enormity of volume. I said earlier we had a total of 350 kilometres of holdings. These holdings comprise about 84,000 series, and not all our records are known at item level yet. We do estimate that these series contain approximately 50 million items. So as you know, to date we've digitised 2 million items. Whilst this number is impressive, it represents less than 5% of our holdings. The increasing online user expectation is also by itself a very strong headwind. Our online clients are now the majority of users of our records, and this category of users has grown year on year since we've made our database available online. We also know that our users have an ever-increasing appetite and expectation to access all our records online 24/7. Unfortunately, at our current digitising rate, it would take us hundreds of years to digitise all our records. And although I know that many of our clients can be patient, I'm absolutely sure that none of them will wait that long, and for that matter, neither will our records. And now we come to the financial wind. I'm sure that you know this wind has always been challenging, has always been around, and probably will continue to be around, and is difficult to navigate. I don't intend to go into details today about our budgetary challenges, but I will say that the scale and cost of digitising the many records in our holdings overwhelms the current capital, employee and suppliers budget, and it's not likely to change probably in the very near future. So, on that chirpy note, I'd like to turn the page and tell you that a little about our digitising strategy. The strategy is my guide to navigate through the challenges of the perfect storm I've just outlined. It provides direction not just to me, but all areas of the archive, which play a part in selecting and digitising records for preservation and access purpose. It supports and is supported by our other strategies, including the preservation strategy, the description strategy, the reference strategy, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander strategy, and our storage strategy. As you would expect, our approach aims to be responsive to a wide range of external and internal stakeholders. For example, we are very aware that the public expects to access archival records online from any location, as well as in our reading rooms, in a timely and affordable way. Researchers expect to have access to our collection material quickly and easily, including searchable online copies of records. Commonwealth agencies also expect access to their records to meet their business needs. Cultural institutions request to loan items or copies for exhibitions. And the whole of government also expects quite a fair bit from us, because the archive is a key enabler of digital government and service delivery. Our digitisation program will contribute to the delivery on the Australian government's digital transformation agenda and look to meet the digital continuity 2020 policy requirements by increasing the availability of online Commonwealth agency records through record search. And our digitising strategy also supports internal areas of business like exhibitions and events programs, communication and marketing, our references and our description team through the digitisation of consignment lists, just to name a few. The strategy also looks to put our clients at the centre of deciding which records are of most interest. To achieve this, we work collaboratively across a number of branches to survey the collection, to identify potential series of high interest, and then seek the view of our National Archive Consultative Committee and the wider community via our website to determine future series for description and digitisation. Our vision is to become one of the world's leading archives in the digital age. You've probably heard that already. And to achieve this, we're moving to become a digital by default, where all our processes will increasingly become digital. The long-term aim will be also to provide primarily the records in digital form, including in our reading rooms, unless a digital surrogate is not available, with analogue copies being provided as an exception. Our digitising strategy has focused us to coordinate our digitising, preservation and description efforts to further refine the prioritisation of our records in highest demand, of the most significance, and as well as those of the greatest risk of deterioration or obsolescence. In all areas which undertake digitising activities do so in accordance with our annual digitisation plan. This annual plan is developed by our Collection Operation Branch in consultation with our National Digitisation Working Group. which is comprised of all relevant areas of the archive. This working group assesses proactive digitising submissions from different areas against three key priorities: preservation priority, the access priority, and the digitise to dispose priority, which I won't have time today to go into detail, and I think in previous forums like this we've presented some details about that already. We also consider other factors like, are the records in the open period or close to it, and are alternative funding sources available for it? Is there format within the set records? Would we digitise the records in-house, outsource, in-source, or some other hybrid method? The strategy also encouraged us to look at to be innovative and have a user-centred design mindset. A practical example of this mindset in action is our self-service digitisation station in Brisbane, which we set up about 12 months ago. The purpose of this digitising approach is to provide an equitable option for those readers who maybe may have more time than money, for example. And it also aims to increase our engagement with the public and user groups and generate, for a minimum cost, additional digital content that is guaranteed to meet users' needs as it is generated by the users themselves. The user feedback has been very positive, and in the last 12 months, 1,400 files have been digitised, creating over 45,000 images. We're now investigating how we might roll out similar self-service stations in all our regions. Given our budgetary challenge, the strategy also seeks to secure in-kind external funding from commercial and other partners. We've struck agreements with a range of private sector companies and government agencies in recent years to digitise numerous series from the collection, in particular our defence and our immigration records. The most recent commercial development in our arrangement is with Ancestry, who have just finished setting up in our Melbourne facility to digitise in-house over 95,000 high-use defence records, which will be made available on both the archive and Ancestry databases. Now, I think I'll probably finish up here and so that I've got enough time for any questions on. But I think I'm guessing you could tell that I'm proud to have been to help make so many of our records available during the last 2 decades. I love that when we started digitising, we could only provide physical access to through our records one record at a time, one record to one client. But now we can provide one to many. The incremental digitisation steps that we've taken over the last 2 decades has profoundly changed the way we now preserve and provide access to our analogue records. This paradigm change is, of course, part of the wider digital revolution we're all taking part in as well. Our digitising strategy guides us to have a holistic approach from selection to the dissemination and the preservation of the digital surrogate file. We'll continue to make incremental improvements in our workflows, and we'll innovate by working better together and many other ways. However, this method alone is clearly no silver bullet. No single thing will overcome the challenge that we face, but we'll continue to learn by doing, and consequently our strategy will continue to be reviewed and adjusted. Although I'm confident and excited about the work we're doing, I can only estimate how many more of our records will be digitised in the next decade. However, I am of the same mindset as Peter Drucker, that the best way to predict the future is also is to help create them. And that you might have heard earlier today. Thank you for listening, and I hope that I'll have the opportunity to give you an update in a couple of years' time. Thank you.
Asking questions. So, okay. There's a can I get a microphone and give you this?
One of the things I want to ask you, if I could definitely get one, is do you do did you get your historians to work out data sets that you want to use? When you were talking about your digital data and the fact that it mightn't be a long period before an agency sends it to you, you might have relatively recent data from your creating agencies. Do you do an analysis of what might be useful data sets and pull them together to make available? Are you more into that sort of data sets and data analysis as part of the role of the archives?
Yes, our main strategy is to make our data accessible so that the private business, public sector can use the data to create new services for citizens in Norway. So, and we are going to be a very huge data owner.
Yeah. So are you making them open by, many of it as you can, open by default?
Yes, as many as we can.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Frank Bischoff from the North Rhine-Westphalian State Archives in Germany. I have as well a question to Inga concerning the organizational changes in the National Archives. I will start with changes in North Rhine-Westphalia. In 2016, the government of North Rhine-Westphalia adopted the E-Government Act advising the public administrations to introduce e-records within the next 5 years. Our archivists accompany this process of introducing and organizing e-records in the public administration from the beginning on. We meanwhile are known and welcome as specialists in the field of electronic records management, as well in ministries as in other administrations. In my opinion, this is one of the necessary competencies archivists have to fulfill nowadays. I mean, it's kind of our job profile. We have as well to advise users help them with legal charters of the 19th century, as well as to advise administrations by introducing e-governance issues. Yeah. We need for sure IT specialists, and we need as well managers for the administration, but we need above all well-trained archivists, and I've got the impression that this might be different in Norway. You told us that you are changing the organization, and I would like to know what is the part still of the archivists.
I think we need lots of archivists in Norway, and we have lots of archivists in Norway, in the National Archives and also in other archival institutions. But we need more digital competence, and we need archivists which also can lead us into the digital area. And our main challenges is to build a bridge between the traditional competence and the new digital competence. So we need lots of archivists, and we also need IT developers and the competence I told you about. But of course we must have archivists, and I think we will recruit lots of archivists also in the time ahead of us.
My question is for Anne, and my name's Star, and I work at the University of South Australia, and I teach postgrad library and information management programs and undergrad Bachelor of Digital Media. And digital media is fully online. We don't have any face-to-face students. The library and archives programs will probably be fully online by 2021. I'm very jealous of your lab. I'd love to have one in ESA. Are any of your students studying online but then come to use the lab?
Because at the moment the majority of the working integrated learning students are from the University of Newcastle, and we don't have a lot of online courses. But that's not to say that we're open to all students from other universities. I guess the work integrated learning component is that it is a course in itself, so it's usually 80 hours. And so I guess the equivalent is for when library students go on practicums. And again, you've got to weigh up, is it practicum or work integrated learning? The definitions are sort of changing almost as we speak. But yeah, with the universities looking at that add-on for their students, for them to have the opportunities for placements and work integrated learning to improve their employability, I guess that's where a lot of the GLAM sector organisations, like it's to your best interest and advantage to maybe reach out to some universities and encourage students from across different disciplines, because it's come up again, the need for IT, and I guess the philosophy that we have in the lab, and I'm a former social worker, so I'm used to working in teams. I'm used to sort of working with a whole array of professions that may speak a different language, but sort of try to share. You could probably try to set something up on a small scale, but any institution that offers that little program, really try to think quite creatively in how you can engage some of those students, even if they're not going on to be archivists and librarians. There's digitisation skills and how to enter metadata, things like that. That's something that can really broaden people's professions across the board. They could use it in other ways. I don't know if that's answered your question.
Yeah, no, that's great. I hadn't picked up that it was actually a course that they did for credit. I thought it was an activity. I didn't get that part of it.
I guess with the focus of having that practical experience is something quite new, like the university has had it for years in social work, medicine, education, so all those disciplines that have had embedded the practicums in quite lengthy prac. So the wheel is similar to the practicums, but they'll be across the board, most likely at a lot of universities in Australia in the future.
And can I just ask a follow-up question? Are you going to be involved in the DH Down Under workshop at the University of Newcastle in December?
Yes, so that's coming up in November. So myself, my colleague John DeGravia and Gorte Rasmussen, who's part of our IT innovation team, we're going to do a presentation on the Deep Time project. So it's the project of digitising the Aboriginal stone tools that are on our digital platform. Then they are uploaded to a VR and can be experienced in a virtual trench, an archaeological trench. So we've had a lot of interest from the community and we'll be there at that forum.
I'll see you down. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Julie McCormack from the Public Record Office of Victoria, and I've got a question for Inga around. I'm just wondering, and I'm sorry if you covered this already, is there any process of selection of the data that gets transferred over to the archives from the government agencies? Is it a proactive process that the archives gets involved in? Because traditionally we've always transferred records that have continuing value rather than current records that might have value for a short or a long-term period. I'm just wondering if this has changed now with your new role.
Yeah, you are asking me if the role to National Archives has been changed
in regard to the selection of what you actually take into custody.
Yeah, from the governmental entities. I think we have about 270,000 shelf meter archives within our organization, and the public entities, the governmental entities, has about the same amount of archives. And we are now working for that the government entities digitize the archives before handing them over to us. And we are working much more proactive with the governments, and we help them not to, we say to them it's okay that you don't take care of all the archives into eternity. So yes, our role has changed very much.
I'll start my question while the other mics are filled. Jessica Moran from the National Library of New Zealand. This is a question for Dylan. In your digitisation by GLAM, I'm curious, it's something we've been going back and forth with at the National Library. When you get a request from the public and you want a little bit of something, are you then expanding digitisation into the rest of that series or folder, or do you just put partial parts of collections that have been digitized up? Is there kind of some policy around that? Interesting.
Yes. the client can order a file to be digitized, and the files have been sort of from a charge perspective, they've been sort of tiered. So if it's a small file, you don't have to pay as much. Now it might be that the client actually only needs 2 or 3 folios for their business, but we would digitize the whole file and charge them for the whole lot in that sense. It's not just per page. We don't do a whole series unless they would pay for the whole series, if that's sort of what you're asking for. So that's scale. And often what we do find though is that although we've itemized it, and we said, this file is likely to have 70 pages in it, we discovered that actually there might be multiple different formats in it. There might be photographs, there might be bound volumes, there might be large plans, drawings, maps in there as well. And so we do actually charge differently for those formats, and so suddenly we have to start to negotiate something with the client fundamentally. So that does occur.
One of the things we've been worried about is the decontextualization. If you have one file and not the rest of the files, and you're presenting it as something, and I know we're prioritizing what the user wants, but are we really prioritizing sort of accurate reflections of what are in the collections when we have that kind of disparate files by that? Have you grappled with that at all?
I'm not sure that we've grappled with that, but I think that that does occur. That sort of, we're doing file here, file there, file there, and that's either within the series of multiple different related series and so on. You don't certainly get a digital holistic picture of those sets of records until they're all done. But I think it's fair to say that the majority of the requests that we receive are really genealogy inquiries. So people are doing family searches and of that nature, and so it is just that single file about that single subject matter that they're interested in, and that's what's getting digitized for them.
Thank you.
This is a question for everyone. While you're digitizing records, is there a plan in place for when they eventually become, or when you have to change format or migrate forward in the future? Or is that kind of something that will eventually become a problem?
Sorry, I didn't see you that well, so I think you're down there somewhere. I feel pretty lucky in the sense that I work for an organisation where I'm just sort of capture the file digitally, and we have another sort of whole ecosystem that looks after the digital component that we've created, sorry, a copy of created. And how that's going to be preserved for the long term, that's sort of their business, and I trust that they do that, they do that pretty well now, and we're going through another significant evolution in that part of the archive. So I'm not worried about migrating to some new platform, if that's what your question was.
I'm not sure if I'm answering the question, but the National Archives in Norway have a large need to quickly adapt to a digital society. And that is a journey that we unfortunately set out on far too late. Our organization is still configured to receive and handle large amounts of physical objects. But we are in the process of rapidly transforming our infrastructure and employees to be or to become digital ready. And in the years ahead, we will receive enormous amounts of the historical digital data. Some are from converted analog sources, as I said to the woman here, but mainly from all the IT solutions in the public sector. So our responsibility is to receive this efficiently, store it securely, and ensure that that is a valuable resource for society.
I'm probably not in the sort of capacity to sort of answer that, but I know archivist John DeBarry is often talking about the different formats and having a format that's fairly universal and just I guess being on top of how people in changes.
Hi, I'm Monique Pearson. I'm with the Australian Capital Territory Government. In Australia we have a lot of data sharing platforms, particularly in the government realm, like data.gov.au, where government agencies upload particular data sets and they can be shared and used in lots of different ways. This is a question for you, Inga. To what extent do you curate the data sets that are coming into you? Is that done in a, I suppose, more passive way where you receive whatever comes in, or do you actually go out and actively curate that and seek particular data sets?
We are much more proactive now than we were before. So in these days we have a task force visiting lots of the tax administration or the police or health organizations, and we are going to help them. But which data are they going to transfer to us? And we also help them to actually do it, and we try to be innovative in the way we do it. So we are very active, and we are visiting all the governmental offices now and just help them. We need data in our digital archive.
Okay, my name is Bettina, I come from Germany and have two questions. One is for Inga. Actually, this question arose yesterday, but I think it's a chance. Yesterday I missed to ask this question, and now it's a chance to ask it. And it's about digitizing the old holding of your archives. Yesterday I understood from your colleague that, maybe I misunderstood him, that you destroy the originals, you digitize of the old holding of your archives. Is that correct?
You heard that Espen, my colleague, yesterday, and the old archives, the old papers or whatever we have in our holdings, we will receive them we will store them into eternity. We will not throw away old archives in the National Archives of Norway. But Espen, he was talking about how we work innovative with the archives that are created today, the digital born archives. So just relax.
Thank you so much. I can relax now. I have a question to Detlef about digitizing, and I would like to know if when you present your digitals online, do you present them together with finding aids and metadata?
Yes, so there's an image file that's attached to the actual entry in the database, and so at the moment it's JPEG that you would see, and all of them are there. You know, if it's a 10-page file, then all those images would be in the original order of the file, and we would digitise all components of the file, no matter whether there's just a little bit of scribble on one side of the page. We would capture that to give you a realistic digital version of what the file looks like. So all the metadata about the contents of the file, the catalogue information is there, and it clearly says that it's a JPEG, click on this, and that sort of information is all there right in front of you.
Yes, Fred van Kam, Gelders Archives in the Netherlands. We also provide, at our archives, we also provide digitizing by demand, but we do it without costs. And the moment we started with that, we closed our reading room for 3 days, and we are only open for 2 days. And because of that, we have I think we have a good business model to give these digital images for free. So I was wondering, is that something that you could do in the future also?
I'm sort of misunderstood. So you closed the archive to spend a day digitizing? Is that?
No. We close our reading room for some days a week, and because of that, we have people free for the digitizing process, and therefore we do it without costs.
Without costs?
You know, that's the idea. Do it for free.
I'd love to be able to say that we could and should do digitising for free, but the reality is there are some costs associated with actually delivering that service for us. We do have less and less staff that are actually doing that digitising. We used to have dedicated staff, now our existing staff are doing that, and that's all part of tightening our financial belt within our budget, but we're still providing that service. There's been some pushback on the charging of that, particularly when, I think in the beginning of 2007 when we started offering that national for a fee. The fee was very small, it wasn't full recovery. Now it's full recovery, and the numbers have dropped off, but they actually stayed stable. So that we are getting lots of clients still actually demanding files, even though they're paying for it. They can still come into the reading room and use the file in a normal analog way, and they can also capture in their own device that file. Now in Brisbane we also give them our own infrastructure to capture that file, and they do it to a standard so that we can ingest that image and we can all share that. So it's a sort of a semi-form of volunteering and so on. We are not doing it as a fundraising exercise, this is purely as a cost recovery exercise. I hope that helps.
We're out of time for questions, but I'm sure you still have more. So I would like you to put your hands together to thank Inga.